Welcome. I'm here today with Brian Shields, CEO of Neurant Medical, and they were one of our presenting companies at our 2020 Emerging MedTech Summit. Brian, thank you for giving us some time today and welcome.
Not at all. Thank you, Scott.
So Brian, catch us up on Neurant. We'd like to get current with you. Tell us where you guys are at, maybe some updates on key milestones, and get us caught up on things.
Right. Well, to give you a whistle stop on who we are for people listening, we're a clinical stage medical device company. As you've probably guessed from my accent, we're based in Ireland. We're working on a device for inflammatory disease of the nose. So we're starting with rhinitis. That's the first product. And we're aiming to disrupt neural pathways, specifically the parasympathetic nerve fibers that drive the inflammatory cascade. We started out, two of us, in shadowing surgeons. You'll remember, Scott, from our conversations that this was mimicked on Stanford's biodesign program, where we spent a long time shadowing ENTs to find the next great need. Well, the two of us that founded the company did that. It's one of those great stories that we invented the tech, we raised some grant aid, we then raised a good Series A, and have recently raised a Series B. And we've gone from trying to figure out how to address this disease for the patients that suffer from it. But we also started putting a new lens on it, which was, how do you address a frustration for surgeons, right? ENTs they're a highly trained group. I would suggest that maybe continuously writing prescriptions for patients and hunting them back out the door, it doesn't do it for them. So when we were developing the tech, we kept this in mind as to where to position it. So what we have done is position it in the office, which is a business model that can work really well for ENTs in the US. And it marries really well with system requirements of lowering cost of care, and so on. So since I spoke at the conference last year, I think we had enrolled maybe 4 or 5 patients in our first proof of concept study, feasibility study, and we've now closed that, and we have almost all patients at a year, which is and they've all done extremely well, which is an incredible outcome for us. And off the back of that, then we've closed our Series B late last year, so we raised another $26 million, sorry. With new investors coming in from Europe. So 2 great milestones to hit last year as we look forward now.
Well, that's terrific. You guys are making obviously tremendous progress, and we've been following you closely. What's your current fundraising situation? Are you on pause? Is there something around the corner? Or are there any updates around the horizon in terms of seeking additional capital?
No, not for now. We've taken on a good bit of capital late last year. We won't look to raise again for a little bit. So with the money we have is going to, the key goals that we have for it are to deepen our clinical evidence. So we're going to run a large randomized sham control study in the US. Going to be working with some great clinical sites out there. Get our first product through the FDA, which we expect in the short term, and get into early commercialization. So the next fundraise we'd be looking at will be to deepen that commercialization, but that's a little bit of ways yet.
Right. Sounds like you guys are well on your way. Tell me a little bit about your discussions with strategics. I know that I believe you had some discussions at our meeting, and I'm sure you have others in parallel. But what can you share with us in regard to your sort of strategy with strategics to that matter?
So there was a great showing actually from the strategics at the meeting last year. We have discussions with both the divisions and corporate in all of the strategics in the space quite regularly. We did have discussions with a few of them, and they got quite deep in our fundraising last year. So they did express, a number of them did express a keen interest in getting involved in that fundraising. Ultimately, we decided that to bring in a couple of more funds would be more consistent with our DNA rather than strategic involvement at the moment. But we have a great relationship with all of the strategics in this space.
So Brian, as you're aware, we're planning for our upcoming event. We're talking to a lot of companies that were in a similar situation as you were in close to a year ago. Any advice for the CEO of a startup that will be at our event in May that as they prepare, any advice or any learnings that you took away from this past experience?
So many, I'd say, Scott. So I think as you fundraise, particularly if it's the first institutional round, I think the selection of the VC is incredibly important. We raised a Series B. The environment was difficult last year, very difficult. It's difficult anyway at early stage. Last year just added to it. But given the quality of the Series A syndicate that we had pulled together in 2018, it lessened that burden somewhat. So I think a good syndicate in your A brings a good syndicate in your B a lot of the time. So that would be the key bit of advice is look forward to the next funding round, not the one you're raising now, but the next one. And are the people you're bringing in good for that journey? And will they bring credibility as opposed to questions?
I think that's great advice. So thank you for that. So it sounds like we're not going to see you this May at our event. You guys have hit your goals currently. Is there a chance we'll see you in 2022? And can you just kind of share your longer term goals over the course of the next couple of years? What will we expect to see from you over the course of the next couple of years? And hopefully that includes a visit to us in 2022.
Yeah, look, it was one of the highlights last year, given it was one of my last trips out to Dana Point. If I could say that weather was one of the best things about it. You certainly will see us again, Scott. Yes. So 2021, we'll get our heads down again. We'll get through the FDA, get some really good clinical evidence behind us, and move on to the market with commercial pilots initially, then into phase 1 of commercialization. That'll deepen over 2022 as we prove out the commercial part of this. There's a lot of learning in that as you bring a device to the market. Ultimately, it's a direct sales force we're recruiting. Over this year, we've made a couple of really key strategic hires, building out our management team. I'd say that we're building out a management team that can go the distance here, and we'll be making a couple of announcements around that in the near term. We're recruiting people that have, I'm not sure if this phrase translates to the US well, but dirt under the fingernails, right? People that have done it before, can go the distance, and ultimately, we're not about building a company to flip. We're about building a company that's built for growth. Ultimately, that's the best thing that we can do for our shareholders now, is create options as we go forward. So eyeing the prize here is around growth. I think we'll definitely see you again in 2022 as we look to recapitalize and go again.
That's great. Dirt under the fingernails. I like that. I'm gonna steal that one. We have some similar phrases, but I might have to use that one. So Brian, as you're aware, our audience includes a lot of investors, various investors at all stages, strategics. Is there anything else that you'd like our audience to know about what you guys are up to? I know that LSI's been tracking you very carefully. We love seeing all the updates. We're going to continue tracking you and rooting for you as you build your company and grow it. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I'd say that we're always looking. Startup never stops fundraising, I think, is the rule of thumb. So we always look to speak to investors, whether it's equity or debt, and we're always recruiting some good people. And I know that there's always good people knocking around your events as well, Scott. We're working with partners today that I met around the pool last year, which is great as well. So always open to that element of the network.
All right, that's great. And then a final question. It's been quite a year across the board. Any silver lining that's come out of this COVID situation from either a business or a personal standpoint? What's a silver lining for Brian Shields?
On a business, I think ENTs in particular have started to look closely at their business models. There's a hesitancy now, rightly so, with patients to be back on a hospital campus. So they're very open now to looking at alternates here. So if there's an ENT that can offer them some sort of therapy or relief in their office environment, patients are taking that up, and they're taking that up in quite big volumes. So ENTs are now changing their practice to enable this, or enable this more than they were. That's excellent for us. It works right into our market. So that's a silver lining for us, is that the ENTs have revisited their own business models. Personally, look, we had a new baby in the pandemic, in the first lockdown. So I'm not sure if that's a silver lining or not, Scott. But spending a lot of time at home has been great with small kids.
Well, that's great. And I think that's the ultimate silver lining. And congratulations on the addition to your family. Brian, thanks, congratulations on all the success that you're having with your fundraising, with the growth of your company. We wish you guys nothing but the best. It's always wonderful to get updates from one of our alumni. We really appreciate your time this morning. And as I've said, we'll continue tracking you and rooting for you. And we certainly hope to see you at one of our events soon. Until then, thank you so much for your time, Brian.
Thanks, Scott. And the best of luck this year. Great event.
All right. Terrific. Have a great day.